Cory the Sandman Sandhagen is fighting Deiveson Figueiredo this weekend in Iowa. And I'm going to give my breakdown and predictions for that fight and every other fight on this card. This is a really solid card. We've had two great fight nights back to back. Cory the Sandman, is he going to be messing around with the beakers and test tubes? Guys, listen, I mean, I've been hearing some things, and it actually seems like Cory Sandhagen might actually be training in a gym again, which is going to be really good for this fight in particular. Reinier De Ridder versus Bo Nickal. The rubber meets the road. This is Bo Nickal's first real test in the UFC. All right, Santiago Ponzinibbio, the old man that just won't give it up, the old man that just won't quit. Undefeated Daniel Marcos, Montel Jackson. That's a hardcore fans fight, man. The return of Lil Heathen, Jeremy Stevens. Okay? And a ton of banger matchups as well. We're going to get into these, but before we get into these, I just wanted to say that we now have Sweet Pea special shirts for a limited amount of time. If you guys are interested in paying homage to Marty Lewis and the Sweet Pea special, Marty Lewis grew up eating sweet peas. That was the food that his mother made him before every single dinner. She made it for dinner. She wasn't making it before dinner, but Marty could always rely on sweet peas before a fight, and it became a part of his routine. I'm going to fight. I'm having the mashed potatoes. I'm going to have some steak and gravy, and I'm having my sweet peas because he could always rely on the sweet peas. And so he started calling the most reliable weapon in boxing the jab, the old reliable, the Sweet Pea special. And that's when, you'd go into the gym and you'd hear echoes of, give him the Sweet Pea. And, we wanted to pay some homage to Marty Lewis. So this shirt is only going to be available for a limited amount of time. If you're interested, you can get yourself a Sweet Pea special shirt. And, let's just move on to these fights, man. Let's move on to these fights. Thomas Petersen versus Don'Tale Mayes. This is a really interesting fight. Thomas Petersen coming off of a brutal KO loss to Shamil the Blob Gaziev. Don'Tale Mayes coming off of a brutal KO loss to Walter Walker, who is the plottiest man in UFC history. So both of these guys have been facing some legendary fighters. I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes. I just think he's a little bit craftier than Thomas Petersen. Although Don'Tale Mayes is old and he's certainly not that great anymore, and to be honest, he was never great. Thomas Petersen just hasn't really shown me that he's really that good. I mean, I believe he had a fight with Muhammad Usman, right, where there was some pretty high output there, but I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes. If you're taking Shamil Gaziev to a decision and Thomas Petersen's getting laid out cold in the first round, now fair enough, Walter Walker beat him, but Walter Walker is dangerous in the first round. I just think that Don'Tale Mayes has some tricks up his sleeve, and I also think that Thomas Petersen is going to struggle with the reach of Don'Tale Mayes. Don'Tale Mayes has an awkward, funky, junky style on the feet, too. I mean, it'd be nice to see Thomas Petersen work his way up, but I'm going to go with Don'Tale Mayes by a decision as we get on to Ilia Topuria at home versus Quang Le. All right, Gaston Bolanos, he is someone that looks like he's a KO artist, and he's pretty dangerous. He's got some spinning elbows. He has some pop. He's got some heavy hands. But that record of 8-4 is not very good, all right? Gaston Bolanos, we talked about him last time when he was going in to fight Marcus McGee. 2 power punchers, Marcus McGee knocked him out, but he made it into the second round with Marcus McGee, which is pretty decent. Whereas Quang Le, Quang Le's going to a decision with, what's his name? Christian Gutierrez, which is not the best look, man. Quang Le is one of these guys that he's one of these, you never heard of him guys stepping in for a short notice fight to replace an opponent of Christian Gutierrez. So it's not a good look, man. I'm going with Gaston Bolanos, man. If you're making it to the second round with Marcus McGee, I think that's a little bit better than losing a little pitter-pat paddywhap decision to a Christian Rodriguez. I just think Gaston Bolanos, he's going to have that extra sting, that extra pop. Quang Le's game, he's game. This guy has the look of a marauder. But Gaston Bolanos, man, he's just an absolute savage, dude. He's the Ilia Topuria at home. And I think I'm going to pick him to win. Marina Rodriguez versus Gillian Robertson. Dude, Marina Rodriguez has the tough cookie pose here where she's crunching the neck up to look intimidating and she's holding fists down like Nate Diaz, extending the arms, right? She's standing front and center, not showing off the side. Gillian Robertson, we know, is dangerous. She's got the submission threat. She's got a finishing potential. You know, it's interesting because every time we see Marina Rodriguez go out there, or every time we break her down, she's one of the women in WMMA that seems to be like, you know, someone that can actually scrap. I think that's sort of like the narrative around Marina Rodriguez is she's not like the other girls. She can actually throw down. But I can't remember a single Marina Rodriguez scrap. Not one. I know she's had some, but I don't remember a single one. Whereas I actually do remember instances of Gillian Robertson submitting people. I remember multiple instances. Do I remember who she has been submitting? Not really, but I remember her fights. And she's put on more statements than Marina Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Gillian Robertson by a submission. Marina Rodriguez, I just can't remember, someone that she's beat recently, even though I know she's got some ability to impose her will. Ryan Loder versus Azamat Bekoev. Azamat Bekoev just has the density maxers frame. He's got the Michael Chandler barrel midsection, right? So you know he hits hard. You know he's got some torque. Ryan Loder's sort of got the Luke Rockhold build. I'm going to go with Ryan Loder. I'm going to go with the guy that most people are probably doubting, man. I looked at the odds. I think Azamat Bekoev is what? What is he? Where are the odds? The odds were just here. Minus 395 favorite for Azamat Bekoev. I'm picking Ryan Loder, and I'll tell you why. Azamat Bekoev went to a split decision with Dylan Budka just about a year and a half ago, dude. That's not a good look. And I know Ryan Loder had the world's worst finish against, forget his name, Robert Valentin. When I say bad finish, I just mean it was like a anticlimactic stoppage, early stoppage. He was landing little pitter-pat shots. He had Robert Valentin in the crucifix position. Wasn't landing gnarly shots, just pitter-pat shots. But, they had some thought on them and the ref stepped in. But Ryan Loder is a good grappler. I think he's a better grappler than Dylan Budka. And even though Azamat Bekoev is dangerous and he just got his big KO in his UFC debut against Zachary Reese, and Zachary Reese is pretty decent, although, to be honest, I mean, he's a little bit chinny. He's always been chinny. You look at Azamat Bekoev and you're just thinking, man, this guy is a freaking savage, man. He's got the EV at the end of his last name. He's definitely going to be able to grapple and shuck off Ryan Loder with ease. But I actually think I think Ryan Loder's going to survive the first round. I think it's possible that Azamat Bekoev knocks him out with big ground and pound shots after dropping him. But I think we see Ryan Loder stink this first round up and then sort of get the better of Azamat Bekoev and impose his will and have a little bit of an upset. The American grappler getting it done against the EV. I'm going to go with the underdog. Yana Santos versus Miesha Tate. I'm going with Yana Santos. I can't even believe that Miesha Tate is still in the UFC. How is she still in the UFC? Is this her return or something? This is the thing about WMMA. I don't remember any of their last fights, okay? I just know that they're always on the card. But then you have Miesha Tate. I don't know if this is her big return or if she's been around for forever. I know she's been around for forever. I'm going to go with Miesha Tate, though. I just think that Yana Santos is also probably a little bit old. So I'm going to go with Miesha Tate. On to the next one, Lil Heathen Stevens. I'm going with Jeremy Stevens, man. He's been boxing with Eddie Alvarez. He's beat Jimmy Rivera. These are savages. These are guys on TRT who hit hard, sluggers. Mason Jones hasn't fought in the UFC for years. He got cut. I'm going with Jeremy Stevens. No, I'm joking. What are the odds? Minus 575 for Mason Jones. I actually don't mind those odds. I'm picking Mason Jones to destroy Jeremy Stevens. I think he's going to annihilate him via a first-round finish. Now, listen, Jeremy Stevens, let's not forget, this guy not only got destroyed in his last couple of UFC fights, which were quite some time ago. I mean, this is like one of the only guys to ever get finished by Mateusz Gamrot. Just not a good look. But Jeremy Stevens also was getting pieced up and destroyed in, not the PFL, but 1FC. I think it was 1FC. Maybe it was the PFL. And then he went into these game-bred boxing promotions, bare-knuckle boxing. And this is the thing. It's easy to look okay in those when you're fighting other old head MMA fighters that aren't actually great boxers. You know, maybe Eddie Alvarez on TRT is dangerous, but you're not in there testing yourself as an MMA fighter, obviously. You're having a good old boxing fight. Mason Jones got cut from the UFC because he lost to Mike Davis, but this guy beat David Onama back in the day. That's a pretty good win. He lost to Ludovic Klein. Or did he beat Mike Davis? I think he may have beat Mike Davis. I don't remember who won that fight. It was a war. He lost to Ludovic Klein. That loss does not look bad today because Ludovic Klein is a beast. And again, David Onama, that's a pretty good win to have. Mason Jones, despite the fact that he has been in the UFC and he got cut a while ago, he's only 32 years old. Since he's been cut from the UFC, he's been in Cage Warriors and he's been fighting decent levels of competition and absolutely destroying them. And fair enough, it's Cage Warriors, but I honestly think that the best Cage Warriors opposition is on a similar level to a Jeremy Stephens who's totally washed up. When I say totally washed up, you get what I'm saying. Like, he's obviously still capable of beating people up, but Mason Jones is a marauder fighter. He's extremely durable. He is hungry. He wants to get back to the UFC more than anything else. This fight means a lot more to him than Jeremy Stephens. And I just know that Jeremy Stephens, coming off of a couple of years of probably just prioritizing boxing, is just not going to be ready for the kicks and the grappling exchanges and mixing it up. And I don't think he's ready for one of these young guns like Mason Jones, who, as I said, is a marauder, super tough. He's going to impose his will. He's got crazy output. He can submit you too. And Jeremy Stephens, you know, he was getting submitted at the end of his UFC career. I think this is a bad matchup for him. Prime Jeremy Stephens, that's a totally different fight, but that's just not what we're getting. We're getting 38-year-old Jeremy Stephens after a few years of boxing. He'll be dangerous in the first exchange, but like I'm telling you guys right now, after the first exchange, if he doesn't get the finish in the first minute, Mason Jones is just going to take over, and it's going to be that MMA pace that Jeremy Stephens hasn't felt in years. And it's not only going to be, you know, your typical MMA pace, it's going to be a high MMA pace because Mason Jones is capable of pushing a crazy pace. So I'm going with Mason Jones. I think he's going to get a first or second round smothering finish as we get on to Cameron Smotherman versus Serhiy Sidey. A lot of people are picking Cameron Smotherman. A lot of people are picking Smotherman. And he's good. Oh, wait a second. The odds show that Serhiy Sidey is actually the favorite. That's interesting. You know what's interesting is I never actually look at the odds. I hardly ever look at the odds unless it's like a brand new prelim fight where both fighters have not made their UFC debut. Maybe I'll check it on Tapology, but I usually do my predictions like a week out, and the odds aren't fully rendered in the system, but here they all are because we're just a few days away from this event. But on Tapology, most people are picking Cameron Smotherman, and I understand why. Cameron Smotherman, he got himself a nice win over Jake Hadley. I think it was 29-26, and I think that, you know, people are forgetting, man. But that wasn't your typical 29-26. There was a point deduction for Jake Hadley. It was actually a pretty competitive fight where Cameron Smotherman was just a step ahead. This guy's good. He's got good boxing. He's got great body shots, but I just have seen Serhiy Sidey. I've seen him deal with faster guys on the feet that also have heavy hands that are just as, if not more dangerous than Cameron Smotherman. And when I say I've seen him deal with him, I've seen him finish Ramon Tavares, and I've also seen him lose a close decision to Ramon Tavares. But Ramon Tavares is good. I think Ramon Tavares is a better version of Cameron Smotherman. I think Smotherman has a lot of potential, but I don't see the speed. Serhiy Sidey, if you look at the way he fights, he's very fast. He's good at mixing it up. Kicks, long-rangey jabs, and he's actually capable of putting some sting on some shots. So not only is this guy like a long-rangey striker with high output, he's very fast, and he actually does have some pop. And I'm looking at Cameron Smotherman. He has a pretty one-dimensional striking game. It's very heavy on his lead leg, boxing style, and I'm not seeing the most impressive speed. He's pretty good. As I said, he has a lot of potential. He hits hard. He's got a decent ability to counter as well. But I don't know if he's going to have an easy time getting on the inside of Serhiy Sidey's long-rangey striking. And I think that Serhiy is going to pick him apart at range. And I think this is going to be a scrap, and I think that Cameron Smotherman may have some moments. If he does get it done, I think he's going to have to wear down Serhiy with the body shots. But ultimately, unless he gets a gritty KO where he's got to go through the fire, I think that I'm going to go with Serhiy. Faster guy, higher output, pretty tough as well, can take a punch, willing to scrap. I'm going to go with him by a decision. I'll say 30-27, 29-28, maybe even a finish. I'm not sold on Smotherman just yet. As we get on to Montel Jackson versus Daniel Marcos. Daniel Marcos is undefeated, man. Pretty crazy. 17-0, and he's fought some decent fighters. He's fought Davy Grant. He's fought Adrian Yanez. There is an argument that he robbed Davy Grant. And as far as Adrian Yanez goes, that was a pretty close fight, but I gave it to him. I think that they got the right pick. Montel Jackson hasn't been the most active. That win that he got against Damon Blackshear, is aging really well, because Damon Blackshear in his last fight that we saw last week looked amazing on the feet. Really good striking. It improved a lot. Great speed, decent chin. Montel Jackson knocked him out within like the first 30 seconds. I think it may have been like the first 15 seconds where he knocked him out. And Montel Jackson, I believe, has the most knockdowns in bantamweight history. He's got a crazy amount of knockdowns, lots of power, lots of KO wins, wrestling base. I'm going to go with Montel Jackson to win this fight. I think he's going to get this one done. As far as reach goes, 75-inch reach. Daniel Marcos has a 69-inch reach. Yeah, man. Daniel Marcos is the guy that's actually relatively low output. He's got a good chin, by the way. He's got a very good chin, so it could be interesting, because Montel Jackson is definitely going to, have a tough task ahead of him as far as, toughness goes. But I still think Montel Jackson will actually have bigger moments in this fight. Daniel Marcos is reliant on the big moments, relatively low output. As I said, Montel Jackson a little bit better with his output, and I think he has more KO potential. And I think his performances have been more impressive recently, whereas Daniel Marcos is going to these split decisions. I mean, even though he's undefeated, I feel like he's starting to get to his peak. If he wins, I think this is kind of like the biggest kind of win he'll have, and then he'll start to lose to the guys above Montel Jackson. But he could very well lose this fight, and I think he will lose this fight. I'm going to go with Montel Jackson by a decision. I think he's going to drop Daniel Marcos in this fight a few times and win based on damage. But that should be a good fight. The old man that just will not give it up, Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Daniel Rodriguez. Santiago is an enigma, man. He is a tricky customer because you don't know what you're going to get with him. And with Daniel Rodriguez, he's looked decent. He looked decent against Gaston, but going to a split decision with Alex Morono, that's just not a good look. This is clearly not the same Daniel Rodriguez that we've seen in the past. The guy that beat Kevin Lee, right? The guy that even tested Magny, but then he lost that fight. D-Rod has just declined. And even though Santiago Ponzinibbio has declined and he's not in his prime anymore, he kind of always looks like an old man. And I can't even point to a time within the last 3 years in which he's looked better. I think he's actually looked the same throughout the past 3 years. He always cobbles in the octagon like an old man. He's got the hunchback, man. It's weird because Santiago Ponzinibbio is kind of like one of these old heads. You just throw him in the cage. He doesn't know where he is, dazed and confused, wide-eyed, looking around. And it's like you need to wake him up. Like he needs to get hit with a couple of shots. And then in the third round, he just spazzes out and gets a finish. He gets a KO by happenstance just because, there's some old heads out there that just have like this spaz ability to look like a geriatric for 12 minutes. And the last 3 minutes of the fight, he lands a big winging, looping lead overhand. And I think that that's what we're going to see. Santiago's got so many finishes, dude. He's got so many finishes. He finished Carlson Harris, was losing the majority of that fight, made it scrappy, eventually brutally knocked him out in the third round. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Santiago Ponzinibbio does these days. And as I said, both of these guys are declined, but Santiago's sort of been declined for the past 3 years, but he's not continuing to decline. He's sort of catching like a second wind here, and I've always underestimated him. He is the smallest welterweight in the history of the UFC, by the way. Santiago Ponzinibbio is listed at 6 foot. I think he's actually 5'2". If you guys have seen him fight Again, 6 foot. I've never seen him be taller than any of his opponents. So expect him to look at least 5'8" in this fight compared to Daniel Rodriguez. I think Daniel Rodriguez is not 6'1". He's more like 6 foot. But listen, if you were to ask me who wins this last year, I would say, yeah, D-Rod probably wins. You look decent against Gaston. He still got it in him. He can still give us a scrap. But, dude, Santiago is just always proving me wrong. Like, he's just always able to get it done at the very end. So I'm going to go with Santiago Ponzinibbio by a finish, dude. I'm going to pick him to win this by a TKO. The fact that D-Rod couldn't put away Alex Morano, I can't pick him to win this fight. Let's get on to the next one. Reinier De Ridder versus Bo Nickal. Guys, I'm picking Reinier De Ridder to finish Bo Nickal. Now, I've been thinking about this fight. I really do not want to be biased, and I want to be as objective as possible. And because of that, I watched back a few of their fights because as soon as this was announced, I was picking Reinier De Ridder, and I think a part of that has to do with the fact that Bo was delusional about his last performance against Paul Craig, and I feel like, dude, this guy's not at the level that he thinks he's at, and he's talking a big game like he could smoke Khamzat Chimaev, and it'd be nice to see an old grizzled vet like Reinier De Ridder have a good performance here. But I actually like Bo. I want him to do well. It'd be nice to see him actually start having some really dominant performances, but I can't lie. I'm kind of leaning towards Reinier De Ridder as far as on the night of the fight, I wouldn't mind seeing him win. Again, I like Bo. I just think he's a little bit delusional. But this is the thing. I think he loses this fight straight up. He's got the good wrestling. I understand that. But he's still green. Bo Nickal's still out there tapping around like Happy Feet. He's not comfortable on the feet. And he's not shown us that he's confident in there. And this is the thing. Reinier De Ridder, yes, he's got a very sloppy style on the feet. Yes, we've seen Bo Nickal land vicious overhands on the Contender Series, and we saw him knock out Val Woodburn. But Reinier De Ridder is a whole lot tougher than Val Woodburn. And I'll reference some of his fights from back in the day. But ultimately, guys, Bo Nickal did not show us that he was confident in his grappling against Paul Craig. I know that he said that he wanted to test his striking, and he was doing that, and he was probably looking for a KO because it's easy to underestimate Paul Craig on the feet. But even when he rocked Paul Craig, we didn't see any risk taking from Bo Nickal. He was just totally risk averse. Even when he rocked Paul Craig a little bit at the end of the third round, where he bothered his eye and Paul Craig was backing up frantically, Bo still didn't go for it. And the fact that he didn't shoot a single takedown on Paul Craig just speaks to the lack of that next level championship mentality that we've seen from other legendary grapplers. And I'm not sitting here and saying that Bo Nickal doesn't have a tough mentality. Obviously, he's been able to work his way to the top of one of the toughest sports in wrestling, but he's still very new to MMA. There are some things that you'll just never see Khabib, Khamzat Chimaev, guys like Ilia Topuria do. Ilia Topuria doesn't get in the cage and then say, all right, actually, I'm going to play it safe and I'm actually going to, pitter-pat a little bit. I'm not going to take a risk on the feet. No, he always goes out there to KO people. He's always moving forward. Similarly, I don't care how new to the UFC Khamzat is, how new to MMA he is. We would never see Khamzat Chimaev not run across the octagon to try to test Paul Craig in the grappling as soon as a fight starts. Like Khabib, we would never see Khabib not go after someone as soon as a fight starts. That championship mentality, it's not something that you just get when you're a champion. No, that's what sort of leads you to being a champion. That leads you to being that dominant guy. You want to test people where you're at your best, okay? Not always where they're at their best, but if you talk a big game about your grappling, I don't care who's in front of you. I don't care if that guy can throw up a submission. If you think you're the man in the grappling, you're going after him, okay? Brendan Allen went after Paul Craig on the ground, didn't have any fear, and beat the fuck out of him. He didn't even have the confidence to shoot it. Now, maybe I'm wrong, man. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Bo Nickal was truly testing up the stand-up, but at the same time, dude, Reinier De Ridder is going to be a whole lot trickier and a whole lot more awkward than a dummy that only throws a body kick. That's basically all Paul Craig was doing, and even though Bo was winning the exchanges and he won the fight, the fact that it was still close with Paul Craig just throwing the same roundhouse kick to the body over and over again is not a great look. I know Reinier De Ridder looks sloppy on the feet with Gerald Meerschaert, but Gerald Meerschaert is imposing his will. He's at the point in his career where he's taken L's. He knows what it's like to lose. It's not the end of the world. He'd rather actually go for it and fucking fight than mess around on the feet doing a whole lot of nothing. So that's why a guy like Gerald Meerschaert is confident to move forward on the feet. If he loses, he loses, but he's going to actually throw some punches. I don't know if we're going to see Bo Nickal march down Reinier De Ridder. I don't think so. I think we're actually going to see Bo Nickal be super composed in this fight, looking to land that big gnarly overhand. And I think that we're going to see Reinier De Ridder, who's got all the experience in the world, 19-2 is his record, former championship fight experience against, Anatoly Malkin, whatever his name is. I might be mispronouncing it. We've seen Reinier De Ridder in scraps, like in his UFC debut, and look at what he did to Kevin Holland. As soon as that fight started, Kevin Holland's chance was to knock him out with something fast in the first round on the feet. Reinier De Ridder went right after Kevin Holland, stuck a jab in his face, and then went for the takedown immediately. He imposed his will from the get-go. Bo Nickal was not really imposing his will on Paul Craig, and that's the thing. I think we see Reinier De Ridder go out there. He's wary of the overhand. He knows that that's what Bo is going to be trying to get him with. And I think he's immediately just going to try to disrupt the rhythm of Bo Nickal. I think he's going to stick a jab right in his face, try to look for a clinch, and I think he's just going to try to smother Bo Nickal. And he has great knees. He has pretty good elbows. He's got good clinch striking. He's got some decent level of pop in his hands. He's got a long reach. Let's see what the reach is. He's got a 78-inch reach, so he has a reach advantage. He has a height advantage. This is just not Val Woodburn. This is not Cody Brundage. Yes, he's sloppy on the feet, but he doesn't have the Dricus du Plessis power, but he kind of has that Dricus du Plessis awkwardness and Yuri Prohaska survivability, because I've seen this guy against Anatoly Malkin, the double champ in 1FC, just get lit up against the fence against this guy throwing bombs who might be on the sauce, who looks like he's on the sauce. Reinier De Ridder can take a shot. I know that Gerald Meerschaert was bopping his head around, but he can take a punch. He's super tough, and he's not afraid to get hit. And he's been hit a lot, and he knows that Bo still has those octagon jitters, and he knows that Bo is not going to be running him down, gunning him down. He knows that Bo is more so going to be in the middle of that octagon, looking for that overhand, listening to his coaches intently, where Reinier De Ridder is just going to go out there, man, I've been here before, and he's just going to start chucking. He's going to start throwing. He's going to make it an ugly fight. And I think the grappling exchanges early on are going to look pretty bad for Reinier, because I think that Bo's going to stuff him. But I think eventually, Reinier De Ridder is going to take Bo down. And listen, getting up and wrestling when there's no punches involved is one thing. Getting up from Reinier De Ridder being in the mount position, chucking elbows 12-6, that's a different thing. And essentially what I'm saying is, I think Bo's going to land a couple of big gnarly ones, and I think he could get the KO. I could totally see Bo knocking out Reinier De Ridder. He has power. It's possible. But if he doesn't get the KO, I don't think he's got the jiu-jitsu tool bag to deal with a guy as crafty and as grizzled as Reinier. And I think we see Bo Nickal gas out. I think part of that's going to be the octagon jitters. He's still not used to fighting. Reinier's going to make him scrap. Reinier knows that Bo, again, is still relatively new and probably a little bit nervous in the octagon, unsure of himself. He knows that if I drag this guy into a scrap right away, I'm going to have more composure, and I know how to conserve my energy even in those scrappy, high-paced fights, whereas Bo's still learning those things. So I think that if Reinier De Ridder can get this out of the first round after making it a little bit messy, I think he'll take over. I think we see Bo gas out. And I think second or third round, we see Reinier De Ridder get in a top dominant position. And I think that we'll see him get a TKO or a submission or something like that. And I could be wrong. Bo could go out there and land a couple of big shots over the top. And he could get some respect early on. And we could see a bit of a stink fest on the feet where Reinier De Ridder gets hit with something slick and fails a couple takedowns and, can't make it messy. And that would actually be credit to Bo. It wouldn't be good for earning, getting more fans, but it would be a way for him to get the victory. And I think that that's what Bo's doing in MMA. He's treating this as a sport, purely a sport, and he just wants to get his hand raised. And I think that it's possible that we see Bo get a little bit of control. And you know what? I think that could be impressive for Bo to beat a guy like Reinier De Ridder, even if it's a slow decision, because Reinier is better than everyone Bo has fought. It's a good step up in competition, and he's going to have the wrestling dads to support him out there in Iowa. We know that, Iowa, I think they have the most wrestling dads out of any state. So they're going to be in the stands, and they're all going to be tuning into the pay-per-views. So he's going to have that extra fan support. You know what? I think that Reinier De Ridder still wins, though. So I'm going to go with Reinier De Ridder. I'm going to pick him by second or third round KO. I think he's just going to smother Bo Nickal, and I think he's probably going to get a finish. If Bo wins, it's either going to be a very slow decision, similar to the Paul Craig one. But then again, I think Reinier De Ridder is the kind of fighter that would rather go out on the shield than get decisions like that. So I think that if Bo wins, it'll probably be a big gnarly KO. But I've just seen some holes in his jiu-jitsu, man. I'm seeing a couple of things that Bo is doing. He's a little bit too focused on okay, I got to do this here, I got to do this here. Reinier De Ridder's just, Reinier De Ridder's just smooth with it, man. He's getting into this position, getting into that position. He's transitioning from this to this. Whereas Bo, when Bo's doing the jiu-jitsu, he does it like a wrestler, and it's smothering here and hover max here. And I thought we were going to see him gain control over Paul Craig and just hover max. We didn't even see that. I think Reinier De Ridder is one of these spindly jiu-jitsu guys that is not going to just allow someone to, have one hook over the midsection and be trying to land some punches, right? You guys know I'm a jiu-jitsu expert. I think Reinier gets it done. Cory Sandhagen versus Deiveson Figueiredo. I have heard that Sandhagen is actually training at a gym again, so that's really good. And, I've also been listening to those interviews from Sandhagen, and you know what? I'm hearing a lot of nothing from Sandhagen. And what does that mean? Sandhagen has a quiet confidence about him. Normally, going into that Umar fight or going into his fights before that, he's talking about how, yeah, man, I just think this time I really want to hurt the guy, and I want to hurt him. I want to go in there and I want to have an inspiring performance, and I want to walk over to Khabib and shake his hand and say, maybe next time. This time, what I'm hearing from Sandhagen is, yeah, Figueiredo is pretty good. Usually I do pretty well against the shorter opponents, and yeah, man. And he's not making me want to run up a mountain. Because normally you listen to Sandhagen interviews and you could run up a mountain, right? You're thinking, man, Sandhagen might be able to beat Khabib, man, with what he's talking about. Like, he's talking about training the specifics, and he's talking about, really working. We know he's got the switch stances. We know he's got really good shot selection, and he mixes it up. But now he's adding a little bit more sting on his shots, at least he's telling us. And that's the equivalent to Sandhagen adding an extra drop to one of his beakers and test tubes. That a little bit of extra sting here. Here's a little bit of 2-on-1 in the grappling here. But I think that Sandhagen is just going to go out there for a scrap. And this is the thing. He's talking about Iowa. He's telling us that I think that him and his dad used to go to Iowa because they had family there or something, and he loves Iowa. And he recognizes that there's not a whole lot of events going on in Iowa. The UFC hardly ever goes there, and this could be his one opportunity to inspire the people of Iowa. And he's motivated to just go out there and inspire them. And fair enough, he was saying that he wants to inspire people going into the Umar fight. He wanted to have like a Volkanovski, Makhachev-esque performance, right? But I think what Sandman is saying is not only does he want to inspire, but he wants to put on a show. This is another thing that I've been hearing from Sandhagen. He recognizes that in his last couple of fights, he's had stinkers. Against Umar, Umar did pretty well, but Sandhagen himself was not really entertaining. Against Rob Font, tore his tricep and had to smudge fest grapple for 5 rounds. It was a stinker, and he said that I miss the feeling of being the man and having a big moment and getting a crazy KO where people are buzzing about it for a couple of weeks. I want to feed my ego. And not only do I want to feed my ego, I want to show out for the people of Iowa. And he's coming off of a fight where he was talking a big game against Umar. I'm hearing some quiet confidence from Sandhagen. I hear he's training at a gym. And I think what we're going to get is vintage Sandhagen. I don't think he's training with the beakers and test tubes, guys. I think that what we're going to see is Sandhagen in a scrap. And I think that Deiveson Figueiredo is a really game opponent to create a great fight. I think this is going to be very similar to Peter Yan versus Cory Sandhagen. It's just that this is the one that Sandhagen will win, because I don't think Deiveson Figueiredo has those same entries and same combinations as Petr Yan. I think he's going to drop Sandman. I think Figueiredo's going to drop him. Sandhagen has a really good chin, but we've seen him get dropped by Yan. We've seen him get rocked. He said that at the end of that Yan fight, he was fighting rocked. And there's a chance that Figueiredo could hurt him bad, and Sandhagen's just on stilts for the whole fight. And he's got the lighter man skill. And not only does he have the lighter man skill, Figueiredo, but if you're watching his fights recently, he's actually throwing some volume in this division. Figueiredo has always been known as a relatively low volume guy, and he's not Mr. High Output, but at bantamweight, because he doesn't have as harsh of a weight cut, because he has more energy in the cage, he's able to throw more strikes and still, keep his power as the fight goes on. This is going to be a tough one, but I just think that Sandhagen is in a perfect place mentally to actually throw some strikes. This is a long-winded way of saying I think we're going to see Sandhagen actually throw, okay? Instead of just switching stances, getting caught up with the outside foot battle and hand positioning and parrying, that's what he's been doing. But again, he's talking about, I miss having a fun fight. Because for most of his career, people thought of Sandhagen as like a fun fighter. Now we're thinking of him as this guy that's a little bit, he's like a pitter-patter on the feet, right? He's one of these guys that does a whole lot of nothing these days, even though you got to admit his takedown defense was pretty good against Umar. And that's another reason why I'm picking Sandhagen, because Davidson's got really good grappling. We know that he can grapple, but I don't think that Sandhagen's going to be someone that Figueiredo can control on the ground. I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov is a great grappler. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's leagues ahead of Figueiredo, because Figueiredo is underrated on the ground. He has a great submission game. He has decent control. But, I mean, if Marlon Vera can get taken down a few times and get back up to his feet, I think that we're going to see Sandhagen be able to get back up to his feet, especially after that long, grueling training camp he had against Umar. Not only that, but, for the past 5 years, Sandhagen has been preparing to never get submitted again the way he got submitted against Aljo. So I think Sandhagen's grappling defense looked great in his last fight. I think that those skills, once Sandhagen adds a new skill, I think he keeps it. And that's just another one of his tools that he'll be able to use if Figueiredo starts to shoot takedowns. I think we could see Sandhagen shoot a takedown. I mean, Sandhagen's offensive grappling is pretty underrated, and we saw that in the Rob Font fight. Rob Font is not, I know he took it on short notice, fair enough, but Rob Font's not just a total pushover on the ground. I know he doesn't have great grappling, but Sandhagen's entries looked great. And Sandhagen, we've seen him take down Song Yadong, even though he was failing a lot of those takedowns, but we saw him take down Song and open him up with elbows. We've seen Sandhagen take down Chito Vera, and, Figueiredo took down Chito, couldn't hold him down. Sandhagen took down Chito a few times, held him down and beat him up pretty badly. Didn't show because Chito has that thick skin where he can't really get cut, but Sandhagen hit him with like 20 elbows when he took him down. And also, Sandhagen against these shorter opponents does actually tend to do pretty well on the feet. When he's fighting people like Umar, who is pretty tall for bantamweight. I know Umar's not like that tall, but he's like 5'9". He's got a big frame. He's pretty rangy. He's got long arms. When Sandhagen's in there with a fast kickboxer like Umar Nurmagomedov who can match him at range, it's going to be tricky for him because Umar's faster than him and he's more explosive. He's got long, rangy attacks. I mean, he could beat a guy like Sandhagen to the punch when Sandhagen's focusing too much on the defensive grappling and the beakers and test tubes. But against these shorter fighters, Sandhagen has an easier time at playing that switch stance, kick here, body kick here, jab, parry, jab, parry, right hand, man, switch stance, flying knee, man. Sandhagen doing his thing. I think Sandhagen's going to have his usual slightly outlanding performance. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to sit here and be one of these guys from 2021 saying Sandhagen just destroys them all. Everyone that's not Yanni's going to put on a butchering masterclass like Max Holloway did to Calvin Kattar. I mean, listen, he had some rounds on the feet against Chito, and he won slightly, but, it wasn't like a total avalanche of strikes from Sandhagen. That's why I don't think this is a for sure easy win for Sandhagen, but I think that it's going to be a 48-47. I think it's going to be a scrappy fight. I think Sandhagen's going to be willing to bite down on the mouthpiece. I think he's going to go in there with a chip on his shoulder because people have been calling him boring. And I also think that he's going to have a chip on his shoulder because he's tired of people just fucking him up on the feet just because they're willing to throw down. And I think Sandhagen's going to get back to his roots. I think he's going to go back to his pillaging days, the way he used to do it to TJ. Remember that fight where, they had a scrap. TJ won. He got his hand raised, but Sandhagen had the last laugh, right? Because TJ, his village is still burning, according to Cory Sandhagen. So I think that what we're going to see is, I think Sandhagen's going to go out there. He's going to start switching stances. But I think we're going to see the give me the loot Sandhagen, where he's sort of gritting down and he has that angry man's look. Where, remember when he fought Petr Yan? That's when Sandhagen had that aura, man, coming off of those crazy KOs against, what's his name? Frankie Edgar, Marlon Moraes. Sandhagen in the first round against Yan was super serious. He was doing the Mamba mentality at the stare down, don't flinch. I think we're going to see that energy in the first round from Cory. And I think he's going to be totally locked in. And Figueiredo is one of these guys where he can always sort of punk you. He's like a bantamweight Yoel Romero where he doesn't throw a whole lot, but and he knows that all it takes is one shot to rock you. And I think that Sandhagen knows that, and he's going to go in there. He's going to try to grit his teeth down and really double down on his confidence in there. And I think that right off the bat, we're in for a treat. I think Sandhagen's going to be landing some strikes. I think he's going to be switching his stances, landing hard kicks to Figueiredo's legs, some nice kicks to the body. And I think that we're going to see his usual flying knee attempt that doesn't land. But sometimes it lands. But I think Figueiredo is going to have a slow first round like he normally does. He'll land a couple of big shots. Sandhagen will eat it. He'll win the first round. Second round, I think Sandhagen's going to shoot a little crafty little takedown. And it's going to make you afraid. It's going to make you scared because all of a sudden you're going to get flashbacks to the Rob Font fight. And you're going to say, oh, shit. And the fans are going to start, boo. The Iowa fans that want to see a scrap and they want to be inspired. They know what he did to Rob Font. They're going to start booing. And then Figueiredo's going to explode up to his feet. He's going to do like a 360 spin. He's going to do some super athletic escape. And then they're going to get back to scrap. And Figueiredo's going to have the energy because Sandhagen just expended a lot of energy going for the takedown. And Figueiredo's going to be looking for that shot. And he's going to... Figueiredo, I've said in the past that he has this... He always loads up on his shots. And he's always looking like he's about to throw a Pokemon ball at you. But sometimes he'll hit you with like a very short right hand that's not telegraphed at all. And that's actually the one that dropped Chito Vera. That's actually the one that dropped Petr Yan. Again, ridiculous power Figueiredo has. And I know Sandhagen has a good chin, but I think that we're going to see Figueiredo drop Sandhagen in the second round. But I think it's going to be a flash knockdown. I think we're going to see Cory fall on his ass. Literally, he's going to fall like this. Like he's going to get punched and he'll just come down instantly. It's going to send him down. Flash knockdown. He'll get right back up. Circle, circle, circle. And that'll be the round. Figgy wins round 2. Round 3, Sandhagen. Sandhagen's fighting rocked. Now Figueiredo starts piling it on. No. But round 3, I think Sandhagen starts to chip away at Figueiredo, and we actually see the tide turn. Sandhagen's going to be really sinking in on his leg kicks, and he's going to be really stiffing Figueiredo with jabs, stiff jabs. And I think that we're going to see Figueiredo tire out. Figueiredo's the kind of guy to have all the momentum going into round 3. The other guy looks rocked and then gas out in the middle of round 3. So I think Figueiredo's going to gas out a little bit in round 3. Sandhagen's going to win that round. Figgy's going to come back round 4. I think we're going to see a Whittaker, Yoel Romero type of fight. And I said that that's what we were going to see when Sandhagen was booked to fight Chito, but Chito's just not skilled enough. That's what we found out. Vera is not. He's durable like Yoel. He's powerful like Yoel. But he's not skilled enough to actually win the rounds like Yoel was against Whittaker. I think Figgy is the skilled guy that will actually turn this into a fight where he'll bank a couple of rounds off of big moments, but Sandhagen will be in there. I think Figgy wins round 4. Cory wins round 5. I think Cory's going to have a couple of tactics up his sleeve, some clever tactics, some crafty tricks. I think he'll shoot a takedown at the beginning of round 5. And I think that he'll win the last couple minutes on the feet when Figueiredo scrambles up. So I think we're going to see a Yoel Romero, Robert Whittaker 2-esque fight. Sandhagen wins round 1. Figueiredo has a big moment in round 2 instead of Yoel having it in round 3. Sandhagen wins the next round, and Figgy wins the 4th, but it's not enough. Maybe he gets 1-10-8 round. Oh, shit, dude. That might be enough for a draw, right? Wait a second. If it's 1-10-8 round in a 5-rounder, that's not enough for a draw. You have to have 2 10-8 rounds. Yeah. So I think he'll have 1 10-8 round. Nah, I actually don't think he'll have a 10-8 round. Judges don't score flash knockdowns 10-8s anymore. Or at least they don't seem to. And as I said, round 2, Sandhagen will have some grappling, and he'll dominate a few minutes of that round. So even if he gets dropped, I don't think they'll score that as a 10-8. So I think it's going to be a Sandhagen 3-2 victory. And I think he's going to have a fun fight. I think he's going to get tested by Figueiredo, who's old but still tough, got more energy in this division, tons of power. I think it's going to be a fun fight. There's no way this is going to be a boring fight. So I'm really looking forward to this. I think that Sandhagen gets back into the win column, but it's going to be a really difficult fight for him. It's going to be a war. But I got to pick him. I just think that Figueiredo, even though he seems to have more output at bantamweight, and he has a ton of power, and he's skilled for sure, I just think that Sandhagen, he's designed to beat these shorter types of fighters with output. And I think that his grappling defense is at the point where he'll have no issue with a guy that can also submit you. I think that Figueiredo will not be a threat to him. So, on the ground, that is. And I just think Sandhagen has the range, the build, to just slightly outpoint Deiveson with kicks, with mixing it up real well. So I think Sandhagen gets it done. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.